I wonder if we should start looking at motivation as supplemental rather than the thing that gets the engine go or keeps the engine running, because it's not.
No, the purpose is.
Yes.
The bigger picture, the end goal, those are all the things that actually fuel you for the long term. And so like you can add additives into fuel to help clean injectors, all that stuff. But ultimately the fuel, the long-term sustaining fuel is the purpose behind it. So when we listen to motivational videos and do all those things, we read something encouraging, you listen to this podcast and you think about these big ideas, they are additive into the fuel of what you should already be feeling in your life about why you feel like you are created to be here in the first place. When you talk about your purpose and the bigger piece of like from beginning to end, this is what I want in that little dash line to be there. Let this add to your fuel, but that has to be your fuel. You have to be so focused on who you are, understanding who you are, finding who you are, and let that be the guide to your life. And these little pieces just give you a little boost along the way.
And I don't think you can really know what you're capable of without stress testing
100%.
going into that second wind. And I don't think a lot of people are, like what the quote says, I don't think a lot of people are aware that they have that. So do you really even know how much you can carry if you're never even pushing yourself to that limit? Understand your limits, but that also means to understand your limits, you have to put yourself at that red line.
100%.
Occasionally, not every day, but you got to know what you're working with.
Yeah, because the goal is to face those fears and be willing and able to stress test yourself in such a way that you can no longer negotiate with the biggest pieces of your life and the purpose of your life.
Something I've started doing when I feel that tension of what feels like fear, I've also noticed that pressure also kind of feels the same way because they both have anxiety with them. But fear and pressure are two very, very different things. And I think pressure is, I mean, you've heard the quote, the pressure forms diamonds, you know. As cliche as that is, it's true.
Yeah.
And so whenever I'm faced with that situation, I like to assess whether am I physically responding out of fear or am I reacting to pressure? Fear tells me that I'm misaligned with God. Pressure tells me he's right behind me. Pressure tells me that he's pushing me through the fire and he's pushing me to new limits or pushing me to learn something that I haven't or I was unaware of within myself, what I was capable of. But if I'm responding out of fear, that tells me that whatever I'm pursuing either isn't aligned with my purpose or there's work to be done internally. Because that fear could also be a trauma response. It could be a broken mindset that I'm still carrying. It could be that. But once I start to realize like what's going on right now, I've hit a really spontaneous busy season, which is great. Doesn't feel great, but it's not a fearful thing because I'm able to look at it and say, oh, this is just pressure. This is just me increasing my workload more than I've ever have, which is a good thing. So rather than complain about it like we talked about a minute ago, I'm pushing through these days and I'm pushing through these shoots and I'm pushing through all this and I'm still, you know, I don't necessarily feel it in here, but I'm still choosing to look at it and say, you know what, like there's going to be something good that comes out of this. My tolerance capacity is increasing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about how fast you can run the race. I don't think it's about how fast you can get to whatever your pinnacle is. It's about how much can you carry and still be a Christ-like person in your community, in your family, in your business. It's not how fast you can run the race. It's how much can you tolerate. That's
100% true. It's about being able to keep moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I got a funny story that actually ties into the fear versus pressure. years ago, I love camping, being outdoorsy, going to the canyon all the time. And at the church, got to talking about a guy that likes to go hike up, climb 14ers in Colorado. It's really cool. You go to the mountain range, Colorado, the Rockies, and each one that you summit, you can get a patch, you get a sticker, and people like to go hit as many as they can, make a collection out of it, and just be able to see each peak. And I was like, man, I'd really like to go camping with you one time and go along with you. And sure enough, we set one up, and we went to La Plata Peak, packed up his truck, all the stuff, gosh, camping trip. Just one of the things that is like money opportunity, being out in the middle of nature, elevation enough to where it's nice and cool, not a ton of bugs. We take a back road all the way up, have to cross some pretty sketchy spots in his truck just to even get there. We get the tents out, set up camp, lucky enough to just camp right by a river. So you're talking about as you're going to sleep, dude, you can just hear the water running. Just
Magic.
Ideal. We're hanging out the night before we summit, and he's talking to me. We're just sharing some stuff about life, just having an awesome campfire talk, just getting to know each other a little more. We weren't really just super close friends. We were kind of acquaintances through the church. He played some worship. I was a youth pastor. This conversation had just come up by accident for us to even go on this trip. And so we're sitting around the campfire, and he's letting me know he's been training for a running race. And at this point, the only thing that I had done was a 5K for the church was involved for this fundraiser, and we were all showing up just to be a part. And, you know, I had just kind of grunted through it. I had been working out, of course, but never run, long distance, done anything. And that's all I had done. And so he's talking to me about training for a 50K. And being an American, we're talking about standard and metric. I'm like 50 kilometers. I'm trying to do calculations in my brain. And it's not making sense to me. And he's like, that's 31 miles, by the way. I can kind of see you struggling with. And I'm like, 31-mile race? I'm like, what in the world are you thinking?
Do you hate your life?
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I mean, it's very rewarding to push yourself, to challenge yourself to limits. This was well before David Goggins, all that, or at least before I'd found him online and really looked into people, Cameron Haynes, any of those pieces. I hadn't at all been exposed to that. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like, why would you do that? Like, I understand working out and, you know, pushing yourself into uncomfortable situations and stuff like that. Well, he goes on to try to convince me to run this race. And of course, my first reaction is like, nah. You know, I'm here camping with you. We got a long hike in the morning just to summit this thing. We got to get up at 4 a.m, hike up, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. And he's pushing on me. So this is around the same time that I'm looking at starting to flip houses. You know, I've shared that I like trying new things, trying to face fears and all that stuff. And so as he keeps wearing on me, I begin to get a little inspired that I'm thinking like, okay, well, like, not only could I do this with somebody, this would be really challenging. It'd be something new and different. And the more he talked, the more I began seeing the opportunity of it instead of just thinking like, you know, I would not at all imagine myself doing that.
Yeah.
And finally he threw out, like I didn't agree to it there. He finally threw out, he said, well, here's the deal. He said, they have a 20K. You have a 20K. He said, will you do that one? He's like, but if it fills up, he's like, you got to sign up early. If it fills up, you've got to sign up for the 50K. Will you at least just commit to running, training with me and doing, and at least run the shorter race? And I'm thinking 20K, you know, that's a lot less miles. I still couldn't do the calculation in my head, but I was like, you know, that's less than half of the 50K. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fine, you know what? I'll try something new and I'll do it. Well, lo and behold, I'm coaching and teaching at this time. And the day it went live on the internet, I was teaching and observing for the STAR test. Well, in the school system with the kids and all that, no cell phones, no distractions, nothing. And so I can't get online to get into the 20K. And sure enough, he wasn't wrong. It filled up. And so I'm faced with, my first thought is, I know usually when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I do it. But I'm about to tell this dude, no, the 20K filled up and I am not doing the 50K. And I wrestled with it. And I was just like, dude, this is not happening right now. Long story short, the character side of me said, no, you said you were going to do it. Try it, get after it. And if anything, this will be a cool accountability piece, being able to do it with somebody else, and let's see what you're made of, challenge yourself with something new. Yeah. So I signed up, and I ordered shoes. I started looking at where I could train, how to train, what's a good average speed, running. I mean, I'd never done any of this. First day, I go out, man, I just blitz it for the first mile. I mean, totally ignorant to how I'm supposed to do this. I get a mile out, and I'm smoked. I walk back to the house. just toasted. And so I have to reassess. I have to learn how to address this and how to grow in it. And long story short, man, I trained, and I got good at it. I began to get on a training schedule to where I would run 4 miles every day. And then once a month or so, I would do a 10-mile run. And I was ready to go for this race. Now, there's some funny pieces that come up in this as I get through this journey. On race day, I get through the first 16 miles, just halfway in, and I have an 8:08 pace. I'm stoked. I'm moving.
Yeah.
Okay? Growing up through sports, I played a lot of sports. I had cramped once in my life. One time. Football game, I stretched it out, was good the rest of the game.
I get this stitch if I go up the stairs too quickly.
Dude, I grew up wrestling, man, and talk about the level of endurance and in shapeness you get from wrestling. That always helped me, I believe.
Yeah, no, I believe it.
So I'm 16 miles in, and I start cramping in my hamstring hard. I'm thinking, man, I'll pull off. I'll stretch this out. Dude, I'm going to pound the rest of these 15 miles out and be done. So I stretch, and I'm on the side. Well, somebody's running by me, and they say, hey, I've got an RX emergency pill, some brand of this electrolyte just emergency pill. And I'm thinking, some random guys offer me some supplement that I have no idea on. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I appreciate it, though. I wish I'd have taken that pill. I get half a mile in, it starts cramping again. Well, I go to stretch that right hamstring, and my abs start cramping because I'm bending over stretching. I stand up, trying to stretch my hamstring. I go another quarter mile. I go to stretch. Abs start stretching or cramping. My quad starts, convulsing violently on my right leg. And so I'm trying to hit my leg and get it to relax, stretch my hamstring because it is cramping like crazy and my abs are cramping. I go, another 100 yards, both hamstrings lock up. I go to stretch, abs are locked up. Quad is convulsing on the right leg. I'm literally laying on the trail because I can't get my abs to stop, and I've got my toes curled, stretching my hamstrings, and I'm just hitting my right leg. People are jumping over me. I kid you not, dude. I was mixed between embarrassed because people are literally just jumping over me to somebody please save my life. And so I get up and I start walking. As long as I'm walking, after I get everything stretched out, everything's fine. Dude, I've got 14 plus miles left. And I'm thinking, man, I had a good pace going. I'm frustrated, torn between quitting, all of these factors. So I'd walk long enough to finally get frustrated and be like, you know what, I'm running again. So I'd start running. And as soon as I start going uphill, it was a problem because I was bringing my knees up and really kicking my heel up, and my hamstrings would lock up. Man, I faced cramps every time I tried to start running. From that point till the end of the race, I had to literally walk the rest of the way. So I do finish the race. A few times I wanted to pull off. You can pull off any of the aid stations, quit the race. I'm so thankful I didn't, because I walked and ran 31 miles. You got to think about it. Try to go outside and just walk 31 miles as fast as you can. I promise you, you'll be exhausted just from speed walking 31 miles. So I had to take the positives out of it. But the funny piece about that race is here's some information that'll make you think, of how blind I went into this. I only drank water that whole time. They had electrolytes at the aid station. They had food. They had all that stuff. I thought, man, no, I got water, good to go. I had no electrolytes. I was not taking any of the food at the aid station. I had zero experience, zero awareness of the food side, the supplement side of running this race. And so when we talk about motivation, adding that stuff to your fuel, adding the encouragement of meeting with somebody, being accountable to somebody. As I kept my eyes on the bigger picture of just finishing, if I would have known that I could have taken that supplement pill, I could have increased my uptake of electrolytes. If I could have taken the avocados and the granola and the raisins and all the stuff they had at the aid station and supplemented my journey, dude, it would have been a night and day difference for my race.
100%.
And it was one of those things that after that entire journey, I go on to run another 31-mile race. And then on the flip side, I learned the supplement side, but then get a physical injury. And it impacts my race, but I finished that one as well. But through that whole process, I appreciated the pressure of being accountable to the guy I was running with, being accountable to a 31-mile benchmark that I knew I had to train for. If I wasn't prepared, it was going to be absolutely brutal. It was even brutal after all of the miles I had trained to get there. But you had a very good point. Sharing that personal story from my own life, 31 miles was overwhelming. But now that I've run 2, if I ever wanted to run a third one, I ended up running another 25K after that and made it completely through all the way. And that 25K seemed like child's play as opposed to 50K. Right. If I ever think about running a 5K now for a fundraiser, stuff like that, I know that I could go out with zero training and accomplish it.
Yeah.
And it's not to say I'm not the fastest. I wouldn't go win it. I'm talking about knowing my limits, knowing what I can carry now. A 50K no longer seems insane or overwhelming. It's hard. It's extremely hard. But when he was first talking to me about a 50K, it was almost borderline impossible. Like it just seemed almost asinine to me to be like, why would you do that? But what I learned about myself through that whole process of being accountable, having the pressure of a deadline and a date, and having to train and meet those expectations, it created discipline. And it really broadened my horizon of my own self as a person, of what I can handle and what I can accomplish.
Yeah.
So I learned so much of about myself and about my life through that I did internalize that and really began to sit with myself and say, man, if you can run 31 miles physically, what else can you do physically? And then what are you capable of emotionally and spiritually?
Yeah.
Things that you've discredited yourself, doubted yourself on, that you think, man, I could never do something like that.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you've just never tried. So you have no clue of what you're capable of accomplishing because you haven't even put yourself in the race.